If you've ever sat in the back seat of a family SUV on a Monday morning with a 6-hour drive ahead and only 3 hours of patience in your body, then you know exactly how it felt. The Honda Pilot was packed like we were fleeing the country instead of driving to San Francisco for my cousin Olivia's wedding. My dad had his efficient loading system, which basically meant no one else could touch the trunk. My mom brought 3 bags, just in case. Kevin, of course, brought nothing, because Golden Boys travel light and let everyone else carry the weight. I had a backpack, 1 change of clothes, headphones, M&Ms, that was it. Minimal effort for maximum detachment. The drive started like every other forced family road trip. Kevin took the front seat. Because of course he did. My mom sat passenger and played DJ. Which meant alternating between Hall & Oates and podcasts about mindfulness she never actually practiced. My dad gripped the wheel like it had wronged him personally. And me? I was in the back, behind Kevin, knees pushed sideways because he needed legroom. My window didn't roll down. The AC barely reached. The only thing colder than the airflow was the silence when I tried to make a joke that didn't land. No one laughed. Not even a pity chuckle. Kevin, on the other hand, cracked a joke about my hoodie looking like it belonged to a raccoon who lost a fight, and the whole car chuckled. My mom said, "Be nice." But she smiled when she said it. My dad added, "He's got to learn to take a joke." And Kevin just smirked. I turned my music up louder, even though nothing was playing. Just static silence between tracks. We drove past orchards and outlet malls and fields so flat it felt like the world had forgotten how to curve. Kevin told a story about a party I wasn't invited to. My mom reminded him not to swear. My dad offered a history lesson no one asked for. I counted telephone poles. Every 50 poles I'd let myself think, just a little longer. Then it'll be over. We stopped at a gas station around noon. Somewhere between middle of nowhere and please don't touch anything. It had flickering neon, faded signage, and hot dogs rotating under a heat lamp that looked older than me. Kevin grabbed a cherry Pepsi and a burrito. My mom picked at a salad that had more plastic than lettuce. My dad got something wrapped in foil and pretended to enjoy it. I grabbed a water, sat on the curb, and chewed my M&Ms one color at a time. I asked Kevin if he could scoot over next time we got in the car. He said, "Sure," in the tone that meant, not a chance. When they started loading back into the car, I said I was going inside to grab another snack. I told them, "Give me a sec." My mom waved without looking. My dad said, "Hurry up." Kevin was already scrolling through something that made him laugh out loud. I walked inside. Grabbed a fresh pack of M&Ms. Got to the register, and realized my wallet was in the car. I stepped outside to grab it. And the parking lot was empty. No Honda Pilot. No dad behind the wheel. No Kevin pretending to DJ. Just air. And asphalt. And me. I scanned the lot like maybe I'd gotten turned around. Checked behind the building. Looked down the road in both directions. Nothing. No screeching tires, no honking horn in the distance. Just the buzz of a light that hadn't worked in years and the sun baking the world dry. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because surely, this was a joke. But 5 minutes passed. Then 10. No call. No text. No panic return. Just silence. That's when it started to sink in. They didn't forget me. They left me. At first, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I waited by the curb, leaning against a vending machine that was definitely older than I was. I figured maybe they'd pulled around back, or Kevin had driven off as some funny flex, or maybe, just maybe, they thought I was already in the car. But after 15 minutes passed, that theory had holes big enough to drive the Honda Pilot through. No car. No missed calls. No texts. No one pulling up with a sheepish smile going, "Gotcha." Just the sun, the buzz of old fluorescent lights, and the world's saddest hot dog roller humming behind the glass. I walked back into the station and asked the cashier, a kid maybe 2 years older than me with a nose ring and an expression that screamed, "I'm not paid enough for this." "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "You see an SUV pull out of here like 20 minutes ago?" Silver Honda? He didn't even look up. Yeah, I think so. Was anyone in the back seat? He finally glanced up. Dude, I don't know. I don't check head counts. Sorry. Cool. So that was it. I walked back outside and sat on the curb. I stared down the road in both directions. It was empty, the kind of empty that makes your ears ring a little. Like even the road didn't expect you to be there. Still, I waited. I waited another 20 minutes. Then 40. I made a game of counting how many bugs landed on my shoe. Lost count at 12. Eventually, the stillness stopped feeling surreal and started feeling stupid. Like I'd been tricked in the most humiliating way, but not by strangers. By my own family. I thought about the last thing I said to them. Something dumb about grabbing M&Ms. Something forgettable. Which made sense. I was forgettable. Not the problem child. Not the achiever. Just there. Floating in the background of family photos, half-cropped or blinking. If I was a flavor of ice cream, I'd be default vanilla. No toppings. No fanfare. I wasn't loud like Kevin. I wasn't exceptional. I was just useful. The kid who didn't ask for much. The one you could forget in a parking lot without feeling too bad about it. It's strange how fast your brain shifts from denial to strategy. After an hour of stewing, I stood up and checked my pockets. Phone, still in the cup holder of the car. Wallet, also in the car. Cash on me? Exactly $1.12 in change from my first M&Ms purchase. And a half-melted pack of them still in my hand. I looked around. Behind the station was a barely functioning vending machine and a busted payphone that looked more ornamental than operational. I gave it a shot anyway. Picked it up. Dead. I looked down the road again. Still nothing. Still no one. Eventually, I walked inside, asked the cashier if there was a bus station nearby. Few miles out, he said. Greyhound. You could walk it. Not a great part of town, though. What is this part? He shrugged. Also not great. So I walked. Because what else do you do when the people who are supposed to love you most leave you behind like a half-finished soda? You put one foot in front of the other and pretend you're not broken. I walked past fast food chains and chain-linked fences. Past a billboard that said, "Family is forever," and made me snort out loud. Past strip malls and empty parking lots and a guy in a chicken suit flipping a sign for payday loans. The world didn't stop because I got left behind. And that was the worst part. Eventually, I made it to the bus station. Bought a one-way ticket to anywhere with the crumpled 20 I found stuffed inside the liner of my hoodie. I had tucked it there months ago, forgotten it existed. Thank God I hoard snacks and emergency bills like a raccoon with anxiety. The ticket was $49.75. I kept the receipt. Someday, I might want to remember what it costs to start over. The city I landed in wasn't famous. No Golden Bridge. No skyline posters. Just a concrete bus stop with flickering lights and a vending machine that had both condoms and Cheetos in the same spiral row. Charming! I stepped off the bus with a hoodie that smelled like regret and road trip air conditioning, and exactly 38 cents in change rattling around in my pocket. No plan. No contacts. Just vibes and survival instincts. The first thing I learned about starting over? Everything is more expensive than it should be. The second thing? No one cares about your sob story unless you're buying something or bleeding. I walked for blocks. Past boarded-up windows, graffiti that read like diary entries, and corner stores that had more bars on the windows than products inside. I stopped at a fast food place and asked to use the bathroom. The cashier stared at me like I might steal the urinal. I washed my face anyway. Dried it on my sleeve. Classy. Eventually, I found a shelter. Brick building. No signage. Just a handwritten note taped to the glass that said, "Knock loud." So I knocked. A woman answered. Middle-aged, bleached hair, cigarette in one hand and clipboard in the other. "You runnin' or lost?" she asked. I blinked. "Does it matter?" She grinned. "Nah. But we got beds if you don't smell like vodka." "I smell like bus," I said. "Close enough." She waved me in. The shelter smelled like Lysol and canned soup. I was shown a cot, handed a scratchy blanket, and told to write my name on a clipboard. No last name. No ID. Just Brian. That was the first night I slept indoors in a city I didn't choose, but that hadn't chosen to abandon me yet. The next morning, I woke up to fluorescent lights and the sound of someone snoring like a chainsaw in labor. I rolled off the cot and stretched. Every joint cracked like popcorn. I sat up and thought, okay. What now? Jobs. Not careers. Not find your passion. Just something that paid in dollars and maybe didn't involve cleaning blood or asking people how they wanted their eggs. I asked around at the shelter. One guy told me about a warehouse. Another mentioned a car wash that paid cash. But a third guy, skinny, twitchy, smelled like vape juice and trail mix, said, "There's a place on 5th that's always hiring. Coffee shop. Weird lady runs it. Pays under the table. Don't steal, and she won't ask questions." I headed there. Walked in around noon. Chipped teal paint on the walls. A chalkboard menu that looked like a toddler wrote it in a storm. A cat asleep on top of the pastry case. A sign that read, "Steam and Whiskers, yes, that's a cat. No, he doesn't care about you." Behind the counter stood a woman in combat boots and a sweatshirt that said, "I served coffee before it was cool." She looked me up and down and said, "Dishwasher or barista?" "Desperate." She nodded. "Good. You'll start with trash duty. Try not to scare the regulars." And that was it. My first job in the new city. Paid cash. Daily. No questions. I scrubbed. Hauled trash. Cleaned up broken mugs. Learned how to mop without leaving streaks. Ate stale bagels and called it a win. The cat's name was Tater Tot. He hated everyone but tolerated me. The regulars were strange, but kind. One gave me a coupon to the thrift store. Another tipped me $2 for smiling. And slowly, painfully, clumsily, life started stitching itself back together. No one here knew who I used to be. No one here thought I was a disappointment or a mistake. I wasn't Kevin's brother. I was just Brian. And that was the first time in my life that felt like enough. Routine, it turns out, is a hell of a drug. I'd wake up in the cafe's back room, where I technically wasn't allowed to sleep. The couch had a dip in the middle like it regretted all its choices. I brushed my teeth with bottled water over a mop sink, dried my face on paper towels, and clocked in by existing. If Rita noticed how early I always arrived, she never mentioned it. "Early bird gets the espresso," she'd say, handing me a dented mug that was probably older than me. The days were simple. Steam. Pour. Wipe. Repeat. Steam and Whiskers wasn't trendy. It wasn't Instagrammable. It was honest. Half the chairs were wobbly, the ceiling fan made a clicking sound like it had unfinished business, and our pastry display case fogged up like it was hiding secrets. But the coffee was strong, the regulars were loyal, and the walls smelled faintly like cinnamon and mop water. Tater Tot ran the place. Not officially, but spiritually. He was a spherical orange cat who lived like an old mob boss. He'd lounge on the pastry case, knock things off shelves with intentional precision, and hiss at anyone who dared ask if we had almond milk. He never blinked. He judged. I liked him immediately. And then there was Marie. She walked in like she'd been coming for years, even though I'd never seen her before. Bag slung over one shoulder. Notebook tucked under her arm like a holy relic. She wore a scarf that made no sense for the weather and asked, "Which pastry looks the most emotionally unstable today?" I blinked. She pointed at the chocolate croissant. "Perfect. That one's spiraling." She ordered an oat milk chai with 2 pumps of vanilla and settled into the window seat like she was part of the furniture. She came back the next week. And the week after that. She always brought the same battered notebook, covered in doodles, post-it notes, and what I'm 90% sure was a coffee stain shaped like Florida. She'd scribble furiously between sips, mutter things under her breath, and once threw the entire notebook across the table when her pen ran out. "That dramatic enough for a rewrite?" she muttered. I offered her one of our pens. It said, "Steam and Whiskers, sorry about the cat." She laughed. After that, we started talking. Not about anything big, just small stuff. She asked if I liked working there. I said I liked the mop better than most people. She asked about the cat. I said he owned us all and would one day demand rent. She drew a cartoon of him in a business suit and handed it to me. I taped it to the espresso machine. We never flirted. We orbit flirted. Hovered near the line. Traded dry jokes. Once, she asked if I wanted to come to an open mic at the used bookstore nearby. I didn't even pretend to play it cool. I said yes so fast I nearly dropped a tray of mugs. The night of the event, I stood in the back while she read a short poem about losing your voice and finding it in someone else's silence. It wasn't subtle. But neither am I, when someone sees me. Afterward, we walked back slowly, dodging puddles and poorly parked scooters. Outside her building, she looked at me and said, "You're not what I expected." I said, "Neither are you." She smiled. We didn't kiss. We didn't say goodnight like a movie scene. We just existed, side by side, in a world that didn't rush us. And honestly, that was enough. It started with a toothbrush. Marie left one at the cafe. Accidentally, she said. But I found it in the back, tucked into my coffee mug. No note. Just bristles and presents. A few days later, she dropped off a hoodie. Just in case. It got cold, never mind that it was spring and 70 degrees. Then came the bag of tea she liked, which mysteriously found its way into the staff cabinet. Then a copy of her favorite book. Read it, or I will judge you by chapter titles alone. And then one night she fell asleep on the couch in the back and didn't leave until noon the next day. She called it casual. Rita called it obvious. Tater Tot called it an invasion of territory and spent the next week glaring at her from atop the espresso machine. But I didn't call it anything. Because saying it out loud felt like testing the universe. And I tested the universe once before. It stranded me at a gas station with no wallet and melted M&Ms. So instead, I let her exist in my space. And I existed in hers. She lived in a studio apartment 3 blocks away, with yellow walls and more string lights than outlets. Her bookshelves sagged under the weight of half-read novels and emotionally devastating poetry collections. Her fridge had 3 things: oat milk, peanut butter, and 12 packets of Taco Bell fire sauce. The first night I slept over, I barely slept at all. Not because anything happened. Because I didn't know what to do with the stillness. There were no footsteps down the hall. No arguments through the walls. No sound of someone calling my name, only when they needed something. Just her. Breathing softly beside me. As if I belong. In the mornings, we made coffee together. Badly. She burned toast every time and claimed it was crunchy for character. I overfilled the French press and flooded the counter. We'd sit on her fire escape with chipped mugs and talk about everything and nothing, old dreams, weird customers, why cats always look disappointed in humanity. Eventually, I started bringing my backpack to her place and not taking it home. Eventually, she stopped referring to it as her apartment and started calling it our space. It wasn't official. It wasn't romantic in the textbook sense. But it was ours. On a Tuesday, I came home to find she'd painted one wall an even brighter shade of yellow. I raised an eyebrow. "It was too sad in here," she said. "It needed to look more like you." "I'm flattered and deeply offended." "Good. It's working." That night, we sat on the couch, our knees touching, and she asked quietly, "Do you ever think about going back?" I knew what she meant. Back to the people who left me. Back to the family who taught me how to disappear. "No," I said. "Not unless I'm walking past their house to get coffee." She smiled, but her eyes were wet. "Okay," she said. "Just wanted to know where your line was." "Right here," I told her. "This couch. This wall. This room. This you." We didn't say, "I love you." We didn't need to. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I remembered what it felt like to be leaned on, not out of obligation, but trust. That night, I slept better than I had in years. Because healing doesn't always sound like applause or epiphanies. Sometimes it's the creak of your partner shifting under a blanket, and a yellow wall catching the morning sun just right. The knock came on a Thursday, which already felt suspicious. Nothing good ever comes from a Thursday knock. Marie was out, class, grocery run, something involving a protest sign and too much glitter. I had just finished folding a load of laundry that somehow consisted entirely of mismatched socks and the one hoodie I thought I lost in the move. Tater Tot, who now lived with us in a semi-permanent "you may feed me but you will never own me" arrangement, was asleep on the windowsill. The yellow wall caught the afternoon light in a way that made everything feel warmer than it actually was. Then came the knock. Firm. Slow. 3 precise raps. I opened the door expecting a neighbor with a package or someone trying to sell me a new roof. Instead, I got a man in his 60s wearing a too-clean jacket and a smile that didn't quite fit his face. "Brian," he said, like it tasted weird in his mouth. "You've grown." Took me a second to place him. Uncle Rick. Last time I saw him, he was drunk at a barbecue telling me how proud he was of Kevin's internship, and how I should really think about trade school. I was 14. Now he stood at my door like he'd rehearsed this moment 100 times. "What do you want?" I asked. "Just visiting. Heard you were doing well." I didn't answer. He glanced past me into the apartment. Noted the clean counters, the framed photo on the wall, the smell of something baked recently, probably Marie's banana bread that had gone rogue and morphed into a brick. "I like what you've done with the place," he said. "Cozy. Homey. What do you want?" I repeated. He sighed. That long, theatrical kind of sigh people do when they're gearing up for emotional manipulation. "Your mom's been asking about you," he said. "Nope. Kevin too. Things have been tough lately. Store closed. Some legal stuff. Medical bills. You know how life goes." Actually, I did. I just didn't expect them to feel it. "You're not here to check in," I said. "You're here because you need something." He didn't deny it. "We thought maybe." "There's no we," I said. "There's you. And the people who left me at a gas station." He winced. I almost smiled at that. "I'm not angry," I added. "Not anymore. But I'm not interested in rewriting history either." Uncle Rick shifted uncomfortably. "You've built something here," he said. "You've got a good life. We're just asking for a little help." That word. We. As if it still meant something. I leaned against the doorframe. "You remember Greyhound?" I asked. He looked confused. "Cost me $49.75 to get away from you all. Worth every penny. I've got the receipt if you want to see it." That made him blink. "I'll tell them you're not interested," he mumbled. I nodded. "Do that." Then I shut the door. Not slammed. Just shut. Tater Tot me out from the windowsill like, "Took you long enough." I sat down, stared at the yellow wall, and took a long breath. Marie came home half an hour later. Saw my face. Put down the groceries. Didn't ask anything. Just sat beside me, hand on my back, thumb tracing small circles. And for the first time in years, I realized something. You don't have to explain yourself to the people who choose to stay. They came on a Sunday. I should have expected it. There'd been silence since Uncle Rick's awkward exit, which in my experience is the part just before someone tries to rewrite history with a smile and a casserole dish. But I didn't expect all 3 of them. My mother. My father. Kevin. They arrived during the post-church rush at the cafe, of all places. Marie was in the back prepping scones. Rita was at the register. I was wiping down a table when I heard the bell over the door and looked up into the past. My mom's hair was shorter, but her expression was the same, tight-lipped, polite, like she was bracing for an allergic reaction. My dad stood behind her like backup. Kevin walked in last, face tight with practiced humility. The golden boy had tarnished, just a bit. For a second I froze. Not in fear, in assessment. They didn't order. Didn't even pretend. My mom stepped forward, voice low. "Can we talk?" I looked at Rita. She looked at me. I wiped my hands on my apron and nodded toward the back corner booth. The one under the framed photo of Tater Tot in a tiny beret. They sat like strangers in a therapist's waiting room. Kevin didn't meet my eyes. My dad cleared his throat. My mom went first. "We've been thinking a lot about what happened. About you." About everything we lost. I leaned back. Said nothing. We didn't handle it right, she continued. We know that. But we're still family. Are we? I asked. That made her flinch. Kevin finally looked up. You've done well for yourself, he said. We heard about the second cafe. Saw pictures online. You've built something good. You sound surprised. No, he said. Impressed. The compliment sat there, awkward and unclaimed. Then my dad cleared his throat again. The preamble was over. He leaned in. Things haven't been easy lately. After the store, and with Kevin's. I don't need the pitch, I interrupted. Uncle Rick gave me the preview. They exchanged glances. My mom reached for my hand. I moved it. Kevin said. We're not asking for much. Just a little help. A loan. Something to get things back on track. My jaw clenched. Marie appeared behind me then, as if summoned by tension. She set down a glass of water and a plate of cookies, not for them. For me. Then she rested a hand on my shoulder. Silent. Steady. I took a slow breath. Pulled an envelope from my back pocket, one I'd carried every day for 5 years. I slid it across the table. Kevin opened it. Inside, a faded, creased Greyhound receipt. $49.75. One way, I said. First night after you left me. My mom covered her mouth. My dad said nothing. Kevin stared at it like it was a confession. That's what survival cost me, I said. And now you're here asking me to forget it. To act like none of it happened. Like the road between there and here didn't exist. My mom whispered. We were scared. We didn't know what to do with you. You didn't have to do anything, I said. Just not leave me behind. No one moved. The cafe buzzed around us, the hiss of milk frothing, the low hum of conversation, the clink of ceramic. But we were frozen. I stood. You came for help, I said. You'll leave with a receipt. Marie walked me toward the kitchen. As I passed Rita, she didn't say anything. But later, she replaced the photo of Tater Tot in the beret with my receipt. Framed. Center wall. Right under the words. We remember what it cost. The thing no one tells you about closure is that it's quiet. It doesn't show up with fireworks or fists. It doesn't demand applause. It just settles. That Sunday afternoon, after the booth was cleared and the door closed behind the 3 people who used to be my family, I stood behind the counter and waited to feel something. Guilt. Sadness. Victory. But all I felt was stillness. Like a chapter finally knew where to end. Marie wrapped an arm around my waist, chin on my shoulder, and whispered, So, want me to egg their car? I laughed. Actually laughed. No, I said. They're not worth the cleanup. That night, we walked home together in the rain. No umbrella. Just one too small hoodie and the kind of silence that didn't need filling. Tater Tot was waiting on the windowsill when we got back, staring at us like we were late to a board meeting. Marie kicked off her shoes and made grilled cheese. I poured us 2 mugs of tea. And we sat. Under the yellow wall. Wrapped in the normalcy we'd fought for. Later, I looked at the framed receipt on our living room shelf, a second copy I'd printed just for me. Not for revenge. Not as a warning. As a reminder. I used to think revenge would be some dramatic gesture. A confrontation that ended with screaming and storming out. But it wasn't. It was building a life so whole, so untouchable, that the people who tried to break you couldn't recognize you anymore. Marie got accepted into grad school that spring. We celebrated with discount cupcakes and a picnic in the park where we accidentally sat on a hornet. Tater Tot gained 2 pounds and became a minor celebrity on the cafe's Instagram. Rita gave us keys to the shop and said she was taking a vacation for the first time in 20 years. You two break it, she said. You own it. I said. That's not how liability works. She said. You're not the boss yet. And winked. Eventually, Marie and I got married. Not a big wedding. No gowns or speeches. Just a backyard barbecue, an acoustic guitar, and us in thrift store clothes that somehow made it feel more real. No family. Just chosen ones. Our life isn't flashy. We don't have matching bathrobes or a curated pantry. But we have coffee mugs that don't match and a couch with the same dip as the one I slept on years ago. We still fight about laundry. Still forget to buy eggs. Still laugh when Tater Tot knocks over a plant and pretends it was a ghost. And that's the life I chose. One built not on forgiveness or forced reunions, but on the radical act of moving forward. I still have the receipt. Still carry it sometimes. Not to show. Not to weaponize. Just to remind myself that $49.75 was the price of becoming someone new. They left me in a parking lot. I built a life without them. And the door? It stayed closed. But the window? The one in our kitchen, painted yellow, just like that wall? It's always open.